a positional group like the tight end group, this is the draft class to do it. It is very deep.
I'm with Green Bean. I mean, to me, the tight ends that you want to have on a team, it's always nice if you can get the guy that does it all.
I think it's going to be a functional part of the offense. You better get somebody in there that can play, or get a couple guys that do something, extraordinarily well.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dom C here with the Talking Jets Network. I'm lucky enough to grab tight end from Georgia Tech, Jackson Hollis. Jackson, how's it feel to be back on the field, my brother?
It's great, man. You know, right when we were getting on that bus, I was just excited.
And that's Jalen Conyers out of Texas Tech. Now, he didn't say anything. He continued and did all the drills on an ankle. Another guy with under a 4% drop rate throughout his collegiate career.
Jets Network were able to get a hold of Terrence Ferguson, tight end, Oregon. Dude, great practice so far. How's it feel to be back on the field?
Oh, man, it feels good to be out here. I love competing. There's a lot of great players out here, so go against.
Meet our friend Harold Fannin.
See, here with the Talking Jets Network, lucky to grab Bowling Green tight end Harold Fannin Jr. Harold,
former college quarterback, he's thrown, he's got touchdown passes in his career, He matches movements and he matches, he's got quick feet. Like I said, he's another guy who's got a nose for the ball, turns the ball over all the time. Again, another smooth mover, clicks and closes.
And that is the intro that you just heard. And I am Jets Chaos. You know me. You know who I am. You know I'm checking out all these different ways that I can present myself. You know who I am. You know who I am. I'm Jeremy, Jets Chaos, and I am not alone. I'm alone right now at this precise second, but that's only temporary. Today, what we're doing is we are reviewing the top 8 edges in this draft, the pass rushers, the edges, the exciting position, the position that some Jet fans said they will slice their wrists if the Jets dare draft because of the old Will McDonald draft. I think there's an attitude that we don't need an edge, but I got to be honest with you. If they love a guy and they think that's the guy, especially like in the second round, a guy that slips, if they love him, they might do it because there's no better way to turn a team around. When you look at either side of the ball, the position on defense has traditionally been edge, right? Like, look what Myles Garrett does for the Cleveland Browns defense over the last 5 or 6 years. Look at what Watts does in Pittsburgh, right? Look what Bosa does in San Francisco. We have good players, but we don't have that. Micah Parsons for Dallas, right? You catch my drift? We don't have that. So one could argue, while we say we're good at edge, the draft is about taking the best players too. It's not only positional. The other thing you got to think about is who's playing opposite of JJ when it's not passing situations, because Will McDonald is terrible in the early downs as an edge. So don't rule out edge. Somebody's got to play opposite of JJ. Right? Someone. So doesn't mean it'll be first round. Are there going to be guys in the second round that we could draft? We're going to find out. We're going to find out from my good friend, Dom C. Dom C, I can't see you yet. There you are. What's going on, buddy?
What's up, Jeremy? How are you, bud?
I'm doing well. As you know. I graduated and got my license to practice therapy in California, and I even got a job offer already. So life is good. Life is good.
Beautiful, man. Beautiful. Good things. Good things.
And as we're doing that, let's say hello to our friend Harlan Abraham. Todd, who's always here early. Jojo Townsell. Sounds like an old Jet, if you ask me. I think they're all ready to go. We got people coming in. So the question is, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, man. I am as busy as could be right now, man. I'm as busy as could be. I got like we got like less than 20 days until the draft. And then everyone forgets about Dom C. Then until about November.
That's not true. I got plans, man. I got plans.
I say that joke. I say that, tongue in cheek, but
after the draft, everyone's going to want to know more about those players.
Yeah.
sure you're going to have invitations to talk about them, but a dedicated show to watch some film, you know where your home is.
Yes, I like that. So yeah, so I've just been busy, man. I'm doing a little bit. I'm a little thin right now, like running myself a little thin. Took on a little gig writing as well, just because I enjoy it. It's something that I enjoy to do.
Nice.
Like the journalism side. So I've been doing some writing and putting some articles out for this media content, all draft related stuff. So it's all fun, man. I'm busy and I'm blessed. And I say that, with 1000%, like, like a full heart kind of thing. Like, this is what I like to do, man. Some people like to gamble. Some people like to crochet. I like to grind film.
One thing I got to point out is your hat. The A's, I mean, I think you're aware of this. The A's are playing, about a 20-minute walk from the house for me.
Are they?
They're in West Sacramento.
Yeah, you know what did I tell you about why I have this hat?
No, I don't know the story of your hat.
I'm a baseball fan, obviously, but I'm a Mets fan. I do have hats of 1,000 teams. I like to collect minor league hats, but my son Marcus is his team is actually this year the Athletics.
Oh, for the Little League, yeah.
So I went and I purchased myself an A's hat. I'm the coach, so I figured I might as well do the part and look the part as well. So,
well, I love it. I went to the second game of the season. Because opening night it was crazy. So
I didn't. You know what? I mean, call me naive. I knew they were moving. I knew they were out of Oakland. I didn't know they were in Sacramento. I thought they were in Las Vegas already.
Yeah, very few people really know what's going on. Yeah, their lease ran out in Oakland. The stadium is not going to be built in Vegas for another 3 years. So they got a 3-year lease. They're here for a minimum of 3 years in Sacramento, and actually West Sacramento, right by the Tower Bridge. And when I say Tower Bridge, Tower as in Tower Records.
Yeah.
Started in Sacramento, Tower Bridge. So it's a famous bridge. It's a yellow bridge. They're wearing it on their sleeves. And it's a minor league field. And it's awesome because there's not a bad seat in the house. I sat literally in the outfield for $100 a ticket. We went big on this one game because we had a credit because we had a deposit to see if we were going to get season tickets. And instead of taking the money back, my wife cashed them in front row. So we were in the first row in the outfield in left field. So and I was saying to everybody, if I was in New York, this would be $1,000 tickets without question, right? So,
funny story, and then we'll get into what we're here to do. But I live about 20 minutes west of TD Bank Ballpark, which is the New York Yankees AA affiliate, Somerset Patriots, their field, and the company I work for. They have two of the guys in our executive office sit on the board of directors for the Somerset Patriots. So when I go to games, I sit, Jeremy, the first 4 seats, literally right behind the catcher. First row, right there. My kids go on the field. They go and they interact with the players. We rent out the stadium for our Little League program. We have a 14 and 15-year-old all-star game there every summer where the kids get to play on that field, and it's pretty cool.
That's just unbelievable. And by the way, I'll send you a picture of whatever seats I get when the Mets come in. We're going to get tickets for the Mets, obviously, when they come to Sacramento, because they're coming. And I will definitely send you a picture from what view I have. Because like I said, the worst seats in that stadium are still amazing seats because it's a minor league stadium.
Yeah, I mean, what does it have? Maybe like, 5,000 seats tops?
Well, it actually holds 12,000. But
does it really?
Yeah, it's got 2 levels. But like, again, it's like that's like Loge in the old State Stadium. The worst you could be is Loge. Like you catch a foul ball from anywhere. But anyway, let's get into what we're going to get into.
Yeah,
We're
let's
doing
do
the-
it, man.
We're doing the top 10 pass rushers,
Top 8.
top eight edge rushers.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to call it, outside linebackers in some schemes, it doesn't matter. But the guys who you're sending after the quarterback and
Defensive ends, outside linebackers, they're all edge rushers. So.
yeah. So, and a couple of these guys, as I read your reviews, and I don't know if you know that I do that. I prepare, I read your stuff. A couple of them played linebacker I didn't know this about one of the top guys played linebacker, and he wasn't so great. He really exploded as an edge. I didn't realize that as a linebacker, he missed tackles. It wasn't as great.
Yeah.
So we're going to learn all about that today. But first, we're going to start with, before we get to number 8, we're going to do honorable mentions. And I got to say, I have to fix something because I forgot to do it. When you announce number 8, I'll put their name up. Like,
Okay.
I'll have to do that live. I'm gonna have to change it because we did have a change that I have.
Yeah, I have. And I'll explain to him. So, well, I'll explain when we get to there. But let me talk about the edge class real quick as a whole.
Okay.
Very, very deep. It is a very, very good deep edge class this year. It is probably 20, 30 deep that'll hear their name within the first 5 rounds. And I mean that wholeheartedly. And I think that edge is the one position that either Jets fans don't want to, they're kind of like out of sight, out of mind, or they don't want to really admit that is a real need for the Jets. Okay. Because if you look at our depth right now, we have Jermaine Johnson, and I love Jermaine Johnson. I think Jermaine Johnson is a phenomenal football player, but he's coming off of a blown Achilles tendon. You don't know if he's going to be 100%. You hope that he is, but realistically, he's not. You have Will McDonald. Will McDonald took that second-year step that everyone really, really wanted to see. Still has some, some point of attack issues that are less than desirable. My question is why I think edge is not only a bigger need than we're talking about, but might be a position that's addressed earlier than we want to admit, is because I'm questioning whether they see Will McDonald as a 3-down, defensive end in base defense. I'm going to guess they're not, and that they're really going to utilize his skill set to its advantage, and really use him as kind of similar role to what the Jets use Bryce Huff in, 50-60% of the plays, mostly passing downs, really just keep him fresh and pin his ears back and let him get at the quarterback.
Yeah, and what I was saying is that means that we need someone to play opposite of JJ that's not named Michael Clemens.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Now, there are some guys on the roster, right? Braden McGregor is a nice player. Eric Watts, I think, is going to see significant snaps. I could see Eric Watts seeing more snaps than Michael Clemens, which I don't think he will be, but if Michael Clemens is on the roster. Michael Clemens, people don't realize, because of how much he played last year.
3.5 million.
Yeah, 3.6 million.
3.6 million, yeah.
With a $100,000 dead cap hit if he's released. So, the Jets want to get, and listen, I think that they could move on from Michael Clemens in the summer and use that 3.6 million and give it to Quincy and say, hey, you're underpaid. Here's $3.6 million more.
Yeah, you could do some really cool things with it. And we're going to be, obviously, there's a good chance we're going to be extending Sauce and Garrett, so we'll have to see what happens there.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons we saved some money on this year's budget. The more of you don't want to push both those extensions to kill your future. It'd be nice if you can have money right now to eat some of it now, right?
Yep.
Not like drop, pass everything back.
Yeah, and we're going to get a lot of money. On June 2nd, we're going to get all the Aaron Rodgers money. We're going to get all the CJ Mosley money. I assume at that point, if they're going to move on from Allen Lazard, which I don't know if that's the case, but, that's $12 million that you free up with only a $2 million dead cap hit if you choose to move on from him.
Yeah. I think they're going to work out Garrett's and Sauce's extensions to hit different years. Like they'll give one a lot money up front, the other will be more spread out, and then the back end, like where it's with void years. Like I think they're going to kind of probably balance the two out and set the whole thing up that one day, 4 years from 2026, when we have to pay a quarterback real money, we'll be prepared to do that as well.
Yeah. All right. So should we get into some honorable mentions?
Let's get into your honorable mention, who was so close that you had him as your 8, and he just dropped back to your 9.
Yeah. So
honorable mention.
I mean, before we get into him, there's 2 guys that I do want to mention because I think they're phenomenal players. Now I have 18 players. I have 18 players with at least a 3rd round grade. Now there's some guys that are late 3rd, early 4th. That's just my calculation. But there are 18 guys that could easily go on day 1 or 2 in my world in this edge class. That's how deep it is. All right. There's a couple guys I'm just going to mention by name real brief, and then we'll get into my true honorable mention, and I'll explain why he's not number 8 in this list. But there's guys I got to bring up. JT Tuimoloau out of Ohio State. He's going to be a phenomenal pro. He's actually my 13th ranked edge on the class. In the class, I think he's a true base 4-3 defensive end. He's built different. He's big. He's long. He's powerful. He's explosive. He plays with such good leverage. Really, really good anchor. Really, really good run defensive mindset first. You know what I mean? Not the flashiest, not a guy that's going to be a double-digit sack artist. Like he reminds me a lot. His game style reminds me a lot of George Karlaftis, right?
So you're saying he could be a defensive end in a 3-4?
4-3.
A 4-3, but not one of the guys, not in a 3-4. He can't be on the line.
I guess he could play I guess he could play outside on a 3-4. But I really like. I'm sure he can. He was just never asked to do it. But right. I just like his edge setting ability and his real run first focus on the defense. So I wanted to mention him because I think he's worthy of it. There's another guy, Landon Jackson, one of your favorites, I know, out of Arkansas, 6'7", 285 pounds, late developer, really had to grow into his body. He came into Arkansas and he was really, really light, really, really unskilled, very, very raw. But man, now he's got a pass rush toolbox. He's a big guy, so he can play defense. Like to me, I think he is your prototypical 3-4 end, 3-4 edge, with some pass rush skills to boot. He's gonna be a phenomenal football player. And like I said, that arm length, that wingspan, that size at 6'7", he's very, very difficult player to match up when he's rushing the passer, because he's physically, he's so imposing and has such the advantage that way. So Landon Jackson, another guy, it wouldn't surprise me. I got a 3rd round grade on him, but if he went round 2, I wouldn't blink an eye at it at all.
Yeah, and he's also I just when I was there watching him interact with people and everything, and even in the combines when you saw what he was doing and the way he talks, he's going to be a leader. Yeah. He's going to be a locker room guy for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
But my true honorable mention that I'm going to talk about now, Jeremy, he was one of my favorite players last year, right? Last year he was at Florida, this year at Ole Miss, and that's Princely Umanmielen. He and the number 8 guy that we will talk about have the exact same grade for me. They graded out exactly the same. So I just put Princely at 9 because I want to talk a little bit more in depth. Number 8 is a guy that not everyone is familiar with. But Princely Umanmielen at 6'4.5", 255 pounds, very, very effective throughout his collegiate career. He started he started in 22, 23, and now 24. Both SEC schools, was a starter, has over 40 games, almost 40 games started through his career. Length and strength is his calling card, man. He doesn't let guys get into his chest. He's got a mean bull rush, really, really good upper body strength. He's got a brother who's a safety prospect, I believe, at Arizona State, who's gonna really, really make a name for himself. But he's got a very, very nuanced pass rush bag. He's very strong. Like, power is first and foremost, but he can hit the Will McDonald spin move like it's going out of style. Really good.
And he's got a motor. I just want to throw that.
He's got a really, really big motor. The thing with him is that he's not. I don't know if he's elite at anything. He's very good at all of it. He's not elite at anything. So I think that's why he's probably going to drop. He could. He can get around the edge. He can get around a tackle on the outside, but he's not the bendiest and he's not the twitchiest. I think his hands are strong, but they're not always accurate. He can. He plays he's gotten a lot better playing the run, but he's still not like he's not the best at it. Like the next guy that we're going to talk about, who I think is arguably one of the two best run stuffing defensive ends in the class. But Princely Umanmielenin's gonna play a long time in the league. There's grumblings that he could go late round 1. I don't necessarily see it. I think he's more of a high floor, low ceiling guy. And those guys usually don't go late. And if somebody's gonna take a shot on the guy, they're gonna take a shot on the guy with a super high ceiling. Where I think this
is going to be a good edge sealer with 8 sacks, 7-8 sacks.
Yeah, he's going to be he's going to be exactly what his game is very similar to me to Jermaine Johnson.
Wow,
that skill set that he has. I think he's a little bit stronger than Jermaine is. He's a little bit even more physical. But Jermaine knows. I think Jermaine's a better run defender right now. He's not bad. I'm saying Umanmielinen is bad, but I think Jermaine is better. And Umanmielinen might be a better power, might be better at getting home to the quarterback than Jermaine Johnson is. So very similar skill sets. I think he's a great player. I loved him last year. I thought he was going to be a surefire top 10 pick this year, but that's what happens. Guys that on paper the year before, that's why it's so funny when people just rave about all the quarterbacks. It's a better quarterback class next year. Wait. We don't know what's going to happen, right? Guys that we're talking about as dead top 5 picks, like Carson Beck, we
thought the Zach Wilson year, the Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields. We thought that year was this, Trey Lance. Everyone was going crazy for that quarterback class, and it was a giant flop. Even Trevor Lawrence, at the end of the day, he's good. I would take him in a heartbeat. Don't get me wrong, but he's not what we thought he was going to be yet. So far, it's a disappointment. He's not this generational guy. So. Yeah. So you're right. You never really know. What if Shedeur Sanders and Ward come out and are superstars? What if Jackson Dart? What if those 3 guys all become stars?
Yeah. You're right.
It's then it's a great class.
Yeah.
But anyway,
let's get into number 8.
Into number 8, I'm excited to do it. You're gonna have to tell me how to spell his name in the school when you say it, because I don't have it in. I'm gonna type it in real fast.
Yeah. So my number 8 edge in the class is Elijah Roberts from SMU, and that's just spelled like that, Elijah Roberts, SMU.
From SMU. Okay, that's the best to type.
I'll let you pop that in. And yeah, Roberts is criminally being slept on. And you spelled Elijah wrong. You forgot the H, but who cares? It's Elijah. He's criminally being slept on. I told you that he's one of the 2 guys that I think you can argue as the best pure run defenders from the edge class. In this draft class, he's pushing 6'4". He's just under 6'4", 285 pounds. He's slimmed down a little bit for his workouts, but his play weight is going to be anywhere between 280 and 290. He's an older prospect, started his career at Miami before transferring over to SMU. You talk about bull in a china shop. If you remember Lucas Van Ness from a couple years back, right? That type of defensive end where it's not so much that he lacks nuance and he doesn't work to use that pass rush bag to put all these crazy moves on you to get to the quarterback. He just says, fuck it, I'm going to go through you. And he does. You see him just like a pure brute strength kind of player. You see him physically move offensive tackles. When he's head up with tackles, he takes them on head up, and he stacks and he sheds and he fits the run better, just about as good as anybody in this edge class. I love his power profile. I love the idea of, a guy that big, a guy that size, a guy that violent on this defense. Like, he epitomizes what like a tone setter is for me. You know what I mean? I don't know if he's ever going to be, a double-digit sack guy. I just don't know if that's, in his bag. But, man, what he can do in all other aspects of the game is something that the Jets haven't had. Well, they definitely missed last year in JFM, So to me, Elijah Roberts is the perfect complement to
Jermaine Johnson.
No, well, I mean, play opposite Jermaine Johnson, but the perfect complement to Will McDonald, right? Because you can play Elijah Roberts on early downs, and then on third down, what you do is what he did in college a lot of the time. You just slide him inside and let him rush from the inside in a 4-point stance next to Quinnen Williams. So you're getting the best of both worlds. You can bring Will McDonald in. You can have Elijah Roberts rush next to Quinnen Williams or Leonard Taylor, or whoever in the is part of that rotation. So this is a guy that I think is not getting the recognition that he deserves. Now, he is 23, a little bit older. He'll be 24 into his first year. The previous regime had no problem drafting older draft prospects, right? Jermaine Johnson and Will McDonald were first-round picks at 24 years old. And I think that Elijah Roberts is that JFM type of defensive end that we're missing, that we sorely missed last year, that we thought Michael Clemens possibly could be, but never was. And I'll tell you this, the Jets are doing a lot of homework on Elijah Roberts. Not only did they scout SMU games heavily, but during his pro day, they met with him. They met with his coaches. They've done background checks on him. They talked to his high school coaches. They wanted to see what kind of man Elijah Roberts is and how much he loves football. So
what round? I mean, do you think the Jets would take him? Like, do you think they would be willing to?
I easily in the third round.
Right.
Like he could be a guy. He could be a guy that maybe they trade down to round 2 and take him at the bottom of round 2
and get an extra third.
Mm-hmm. Something like that, But definitely, I think he's going to be off the board in round 3. I think that's probably where his floor is, somewhere in that round 3. If he sneaks past round 3, he's going to be the steal of the draft for anyone that gets him past round 3. Wow. If he makes it into day 3.
Right. So hard to tell sometimes, right? Because you don't know what the teams are thinking and what their needs are, and
and he's just a different mold. He's a different mold. He's something that I think, when you talk about establishing an identity, and that's what Aaron Glenn has said time after time after time, we want to play violent and physical on defense, and we want tone setters. And that's exactly what Elijah Roberts is.
I love it. So, so that, I was going to say, it sounds like a Jet, right? I mean, we definitely need that early down guy from McDonald. The first guy you spoke about at 13, your 13th ranked guy,
JT Kumalau.
Yeah, he sounds also like he could be a good complement to Will McDonald, right?
Yeah, a good rotational piece, exactly. Yeah. And listen, you need 3 edges. You need 3 good edges to be a viable defense. You can't do it just with 2, and you can't do it with 2 and a couple of depth pieces like the Jets tried to do last year. They definitely need some draft. They need some draft capital spent in the edge room this year. Yeah, Dano, I'll sleep in May, man. I'll sleep in May, brother.
That's what we all do. We all shut down in May.
So. Yeah.
We'll get in 7.
Yeah, we'll bring in number 7. And number 7 is interesting because there's probably nobody in the edge room who has skyrocketed as much as him. Like he graded out as with a late day 2, early day 3 grade for me. But I am almost willing to bet, and I don't gamble, But if I was to hit up like DraftKings or BetUS or something like this, I would put everything I got in my pocket on that this guy's a first round pick. And that's Donovan Ezaraku out of Boston College.
First round, you said?
First round, absolutely.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, I think the draft starts for him right around 15, where the Falcons are. I think he's a perfect fit. And again, I know this is a Jet show, but like when you talk about Jeff Ulbrich and that wide 9 scheme that he's going to employ over there, he is the perfect wide 9 defensive end. He is a juiced up. He is a better version of Bryce Huff. Really, really smooth. I mean, I think he had, double-digit sacks for 3 consecutive years. Last year, he had a 25% pass rush win rate on true pass sets when there was no play action, when they just dropped back and pass. He couldn't be stopped. He's smooth. He's really good get off. He does a good job of setting up his pass rush, he does a good job setting up the offensive tackles. Really, really active hands. Again, another guy who plays with a really big motor. Now, again, he's 6'2", 245, so he's not the biggest guy. So he gets swallowed up sometimes in certain schemes, or if he's asked to do too much, especially the run, he can get kind of swallowed up in that phone booth. That's not where he doesn't redirect offensive linemen very well, doesn't shed them great. But there's all that stuff is kind of downplayed when you watch him just get at the passer. Like, this guy is a pure pass rusher. And he does it so well and does it so fluently and so nuanced in every aspect, whether he's rushing, whether he converts speed to power, whether he's setting you up and coming across your face from the outside to the inside. He is the ideal looper in that when they play those stunts up front, where the tackle kind of, the tackle jets out and he loops around from the outside to the inside. He's a pro at that. This guy's going to be a double-digit sack
Wow.
Sack guy,
like
really quick.
Specialist, like pass rush specialist.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a little bit more than just like a true DPR. But this guy's gonna, he's gonna do it really quick. I think that his style, and if he just keeps stacking on what he did in college, I think he's going to, I think he's going to be a double-digit sack guy quicker than you think.
Wow.
So that's Ezaraku.
Wow, that's dangerous. Hopefully, he doesn't go to anyone in our division. I would hate to see the Bills get him or something.
Yeah, and like I said, I think you really start talking about him in the middle of the first round, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if he's off the board, if he's edge 2 or 3 off the board. That's how special he is.
That's wild. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. What a deep class. What a great class this is. When Landon Jackson is not in your top 8, and you just look at the size of the man and his beautiful bald head, it's a deep draft. But that brings us to number 6. Yes. I like this guy. You've liked this guy. You've been talking about this guy since we first even mentioned 20.
Yeah, he was my edge 2. He was one of the first full reviews that I did on the edge class this year. So I had him up way high. I had him up before before I really got into Abdul Carter's tape, before I got into Mike Green's tape, before I got into a lot of guys' tape. And he's so good. And again, he's another guy who's done it at multiple schools and really succeeded. It succeeded at every level that he played. And that's Nick Scorton out of Texas A&M. Now, Scorton started at Purdue. Scorton played Purdue, and he had a completely different body composition than he does now. Texas A&M, and we'll get into more Texas A&M rushers soon. But their defensive model, it was completely different. They wanted big, stronger guys who could hold their own in the run, really play gap-conscious football. So they wanted bigger bodies. When he was at Purdue, he played at like 250, 260. So he was asked to put on a lot of weight at Texas A&M. I think it didn't do him much justice. I think he played better when he was a little bit lighter. But like I said, he started all 14 games as a freshman. He started 11 games as a sophomore, all at Purdue, second team all Big Ten as a sophomore. Was ballyhooed as the next big pass rusher. Transferred to Texas A&M. They put some weight on him, and he was still good, but he lacked some. He was missing something. And I think the weight that the extra weight that he carried really sapped a little bit of that juice that he had around the edge. But he's built thick, big legs, big ass, that's good, if you're a defensive player. But he plays so low. That's where I think his advantage is. That guy, he's got some girth, but man, he wins the leverage battle, which is a wonderful thing. Again, another guy with strong, violent hands, good pop, can take tackles right off of their stance just with a good hand shiver. He's got good get off. Again, I think some of his suddenness or his first step, like twitchiness, was kind of sapped with some of the extra weight that he put on. I'd like to see him get a little bit slimmer if I was his coach. But he's got phenomenal range, man. He plays with a motor. He's capable of making plays on the backside. If he's the right end, like he'll chase down plays and finish them, in the backfield on the left side. Always taking good pursuit angles and stuff like that. I think he's, if he drops some weight, I think he could actually stand up and play on 2 feet in a 3-4 and really, cover, not cover man to man necessarily, but if you ask him to drop off into his own and something like that, I think he could do it. He doesn't have he's not the bendiest. He's not he's not like Gumby, like Abdul Carter or Will McDonald. But he still is very, very productive, right? I think he's a 3-down player. I think he can come into the league and make a name for himself. I think he's got a little bit of technical stuff that he needs to clean up. His footwork's a little sloppy. He has a tendency to take like kind of a hezzy step or a false step, where coming off the line, he fires out low, but he has to gather himself first. So he has to take a step back to fire out, and which, he was a better athlete than everyone in college, but he's not going to be a better athlete than everyone in the NFL. And that extra hesitation, that extra false step that he takes could play to, not to his benefit, to his detriment. So I think he's got to clean up some of the stuff technically, but I can see him coming in a 4-3 and being a real rotational piece right from the get-go before he, kind of finds his own way and really makes a name for himself. I like him a little bit lighter. Like I said, I'd like him to kind of lose some of that weight that Texas A&M had him play. 285 is just too much weight for him. It's sapped some of his suddenness, but I think if you get him down to 265, 270, he can be that much quicker and that much, and that much faster and that much sudden. And you tie that in with his natural, with all his natural skill sets. And you're talking about a really, really good player. He's a pure second round grade for me. I think I think you start talking about him anywhere from the late 20s, from those teams like Washington, from those teams like Philadelphia, from the teams like Baltimore, all the way to the beginning of the second round. I don't think he gets past like Cleveland, Tennessee, the Giants, depending on what they do in round 1. I think he's off the board by pick 40.
Potent draft class for the edge, man.
Yep.
A lot of names, a lot of guys that can go in the first round already. It's wild. Did Clemens go to Texas A&M?
He did.
Harlan's asking. Okay.
Yeah.
Good call, Harlan. Good boy, Harlan. Good boy. That's a good boy.
Now, speaking of Texas A&M.
Yeah. I know we have a lot of A&M conversation going on. I know.
Yeah, my number 5 player in the draft is Shamar Stewart, the other edge from Texas A&M. Probably the most polarizing player in this entire class. Actually, maybe him or number 4. Just because, people either love Shamar Stewart or they hate Shamar Stewart.
I see.
There's no in between.
I see mocks where he's in the low 20s, and I see mocks where he doesn't go in the first round.
Yeah, and then there's people that think he's a lock to go in the top 10.
Which is wild.
So Shamar Stewart, the problem, and I'm not going to say the problem, but why there's so much volatility and where he can go is because he is an absolute athletic freak. When you talk about combine warriors, that's Shamar Stewart.
Mm.
Ran in the 4.4s, 4.5 or 4.5s at 280 pounds. Just athletic, maybe the most athletic defensive end that we've seen in some time. Tested out of this world, but there's no production behind it. I think he had 3 sacks last year, right? Gets home, doesn't, can get there, can get the pressures, couldn't seal the deal. Now, not all of it's his fault. Like I said, a lot of the time he wasn't asked. He was asked to really, maintain his gap integrity and stay at home. So a lot of the pressures that he got and didn't finish with sacks had to do with, they were late pressures. They weren't like him just pinning his ear back and not getting home. It was him, kind of maintaining his gap integrity, seeing the play break down, and then making a break for it, stuff like that. So any projection with Shamar Stewart is exactly going to be that. It's how does the team think that they can develop this guy so that he can hit his sky high potential and ceiling.
You know who's drooling over him, right? Robert Saleh.
Robert Saleh could be it. I listen. I could see him going as high as Carolina at 8. I could see him going as low as Philadelphia at 32.
Well, Philadelphia at 32 taking an edge, and with the depth of edge in this class and the failure of Bryce Huff is a very likely thing that you're going to see.
Well, it's not only that, but they lost Josh Sweat in free agency. He went to the Cardinals. Brandon Graham retired. Bryce Huff hasn't developed. So there's definitely a need for another rotational piece. And thinking of oh my God, why can't I think of his name? Trayvon Walker, who went number 1 overall a couple years ago, the saucier, the kid from Georgia, went number 1 overall Jacksonville.
I remember that was a shocker.
Yeah, and very similarly to Shamar Stewart, tested out through the roof, athletic, phenomenal, but didn't put the numbers didn't match the player on the field, right? At least the numbers didn't match the production. But they said, hey, listen, we think he's here now, but he's going to be here in 3 years, right? That's exactly you're going to have a front office that really believes in that they can get the most out of Shamar Stewart, because he just six total sacks throughout college. Now, he's only 21 years old, 3-year player, but 6 sacks to take a guy that high is really you have to have faith in being able to develop a guy that can be all pro caliber if you're going to reach him that high without him showing that he can really do it at college. So that's why people either love or hate Shamar Stewart, right? They either look at the numbers and say the guy can't get home, or they look at the numbers and say, wow, this guy's as athletic of a defensive end at 285 pounds as we'd ever seen. So it depends on.
I kind of do like not maybe not the same style, but I mean it's the same philosophy. I think is the Will McDonald pick. It was like they said their pick of him wasn't based on production. It was based on, wow, if you let this kid line up wide 9, oh my God, he was misused in college.
Yes.
Right.
Now, and where I don't think Shamar Stewart was misused or misaligned. I just think his role was different than what some teams will kind of unleash him to be. So, the Jets definitely have some interest in the sense that they visited with him. They have a top 30 visit already scheduled with him. They met with him at the combine and all that stuff. And that doesn't necessarily mean anything because they meet with tons of guys, right?
Yeah,
Every guy that they meet with doesn't necessarily mean that they're interested in, but sometimes where there's smoke, there's fire.
Just every time, whenever I see the interviews and everything, I think of our friend Dano, and I think of him in a sitting at a table at a poker table playing poker. For some reason, I have that visual. It's a poker game. You know,
Yeah.
those 30 interviews. So, yeah, like which ones are real, which ones are decoys, and
Yeah.
whatever. So who knows?
Yeah. So if you remember, well, you don't remember. I mean, it's quite a couple years back, 5, 6 years ago. Daniil Hunter, who's now with the Texans, who's now one of the more prolific pass rushers in all of professional football. Did it, consistently in Minnesota, signed a big contract with the Texans, did it again last year, one of the best pass rushers in the game. He came out of LSU out of college, and he had 0 sacks. So a lot of the same stuff that we say about Shamar Stewart were said about Daniil Hunter, and they were able to develop him. Now, granted, Daniil Hunter was a 5th-round pick. Shamar Stewart is deadlocked to probably be a 1st-round pick. So you have to really be comfortable enough or have big balls to take a swing on a guy like Shamar Stewart, for the Jets at 7. You're not going to get him at 42. So you're either going to have to trade back in round 1. If this is the guy that they're honing in on, first off, Muji's got to have a set of brass ones, right?
Now, this is it's the kind of thing that gets people fired, eventually.
Yeah, or it's the kind that they build bronze statues over, one or the other.
Right.
But
Hey,
it'll be a very polarizing pick nonetheless.
so just real quick, I would like at the end, we don't have to talk about him now, but for my friend the Ward, for Jets Ward, who's a good friend of the show. He's asking about Ivy. He really likes Ivy from Ole Miss.
Jared Ivey, the other edge from Ole Miss. Yeah. He's another guy that I got a late 3rd, early 4th round grade. I got from pick 14 through pick 18. They all got late 3rd, early round 4th grades on them all. So, and Ivy's right in that mix. But yeah, Ivy's pretty good. He's I think, I don't know if Ivy has enough pass rush versatility to really be a factor in at that. Like, I just think that's the part of his game that's a little bit lacking. But man, when you talk about physical, when you talk about run defense, like Ivy can do that. To me, Ivy is a prototypical 3-4 edge. He's a little bit tall, 6'5" and change. He plays a little bit high, so he loses that leverage battle. And he just doesn't have a really developed pass rush skill set. But all the other factors come into play very well. So I think Ivy's going to find a place in the league. I just don't know if he's ever going to be anything that we write home about, or he doesn't do anything. He plays very well. He doesn't do anything that's memorable.
Okay. Before we go to 4, I just want to address this because this is the hot topic of the day. Everybody's going nuts on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
So it's impossible to ignore it, and Danger's at setting us up to just give a little take on it. Everybody's talking about the rumor of the Falcons swapping picks with us, giving us Kyle Pitts, and their number 1 pick next year. I address my immediate response to that is there's no possible way the Atlanta Falcons are doing that. Like, there's just no way. It's ridiculous. They're not giving. I don't even know if they would do that without Kyle Pitts. They're not giving up. Like, it would be shocking if they were willing to give up a 1st-round pick to trade 15 to 7. That in this draft, this draft that's not top heavy at all, it would be ridiculously shocking. But to tell me that they're going to throw in Kyle Pitts, which would be 1 cheap year, and then you don't even know what he's going to do.
Well, it's not even cheap. It's $9.5 million.
Right, $9.5 million, which is not cheap. But that they're going to throw in Kyle Pitts and they're going to give up their number 1 next year, and that's a team we don't know that they're going to win. It could still be a top 20 pick in 26. Obviously, if they offered us that, obviously you take that trade, because give me a break. You trade back to 15. Next year, you have 2 number 1 picks in a year that you might have to take a quarterback. I mean, it's a no-brainer in my mind. And I don't really see a downside to that at all, because there's so many guys at 15 that we could take that might be as good as the guy we might take at 7.
Yeah, you're right about that. I agree with you, Jeremy. I don't know. And listen, I saw the tweet. I retweeted it. But it doesn't necessarily mean that I believe it.
Right.
Because it came from somebody tied in with the organization. Well, tied in with the organization for to an extent. He did radio and covered the Falcons. I don't know if it was beat writer, something like that. But if you look through the tweet, right, it said that there's, that they've had conversations, and again, when it suits a narrative, and the narrative being for the Jets fans, oh yeah, let's trade down and accumulate more picks, then you run with it. But guess what? They've probably had conversations with all 32 teams about, hey, would you be interested? Is there any ideas? Like, these are conversations that are had all the time. Now, the one thing that people don't want to talk about, or that don't talk about, not that they don't want to, the Falcons only have 5 picks in this draft, right? They pick in the first round, they pick in the second round, they pick in the fourth round, and then they have 2 7th round picks. So you tell me that they're going to give up more of that, possibly their first and their second, if not 2 firsts, to move up when they don't need a quarterback. It doesn't resonate with me. It doesn't resonate at all. I would say that the Falcons in Minnesota, and this is recorded, so you can timestamp it. You can you can keep the receipt. If there's any team in this draft that are going to look to trade back, it'll be the Falcons and it'll be Minnesota, just because they don't have any. They have the 2 lowest total amount of draft capital in this. I think Minnesota only has 4 picks and the Falcons only have 5, 2 of them which are 7th rounders.
And this is a terrible draft to have little draft capital, because there's so much beautiful depth in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th rounds.
Yes. And that's where you want most of your cap. That's why, I think, and it pains me to say it, I think the Buffalo Bills are sitting so pretty, right? They pick at 30th. They have 2 2nd round picks, both late. And then they have 2 3rd round picks, both late. They have 5 picks in the top 110. Right in that meat and potato spot.
Every time, like, I know it's fake mock drafts, and never happens in real life that you have so many trade partners, but it's so easy to just crush the draft when you're offered trades in that stupid PFN trade thing, because you give me the ability to trade back a couple of times in that first round. Yeah, I'm going to end up with a guy like Golden, right? And that's going to piss some people off, or Loveland, and I'm not going to get Warren, or I might get Kelvin Banks, right? And I might not get, Membo.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at what you get when you trade back that far on those mock drafts apps and get me 3 or 4 picks in the top 50, I go to town in those drafts. I mean, we just load up. We fill every position with day 1 starters. It's absolutely ridiculous. So it's a dream. And the reality is, what sets me right is what these other teams are not going to all be running to trade up, because they see the same thing. They have personnel departments. They know that they don't want to give away those picks in the middle rounds of this draft.
Yeah.
Right. So
we're up to there's a lot of smoke around what the Jets, just for instance, I'm sure you saw it today, the whole Cimini, which, and I'll say it on your channel, I won't say it on other people's channel, but there is no doubt in my mind that Cimini put that article that, the Jets could possibly trade Breece Hall and draft Ashton Jeanty. Nothing more but clickbait, man.
Yeah. It's
nothing more than drive up, and there's no knock on Jeanty or anything like that. But you don't know, all of a sudden the Jets are tied. There's rumors about Jeanty. There's been rumors about Shedeur Sanders. There's been rumors about Jackson Dart. You know what I think it is? I think it's all stuff that the Jets are putting out, leaking out, so it gets out there to drum up interest for people to come up to 7 so they can trade back.
You know how Cimini gets his stories? I know this to be true. One of the ways he gets his ideas for these clickbait stories is somebody asks him. Like, somebody will say, do you think that after what Aaron Glenn said, that he might be willing to, get rid of Breece Hall and take Gentry? And I think Cimini, he gets asked millions of questions from fans. I think sometimes he goes, that's a really good idea for an article. I'm going to turn that into an article. I'm going to say, yeah, maybe he will. And that's going to be a great article. That's going to get me a million clicks. But anyway, let's move on to number 4.
Mhm.
This is where it really gets exciting because I mean we're already talking about players that are first round picks, possibly electric players that we love, such a deep draft, and now we're in the top 4. So these are got to be a really special player to break the top 4 in this draft at edge. So who's your number 4 and why?
Yeah, my number 4 is Mykel Williams out of Georgia. And it's interesting too because there's there's a real volatile projection on Mykel Williams. Some people like him early. Some people think he's a top 10, top 15 player in the class, and some people think he's a top 50 guy in the class, right?
Mhm.
And a lot of it has to do along the same lines that we talked about with Shamar Stewart, is that he sometimes he looks like Tarzan and play, but you look at the stats and he looks like he played like Jane, right? Now, him I think is a result of maybe playing a little bit misaligned. He played a lot more inside. He played a lot more 4-eye. He was like the inside defensive end in an odd man front, and he probably shouldn't have been. Now we talked about Elijah Roberts, one of the 2 best run stoppers in this class. Mykel Williams is the other one. Mykel Williams right now coming in at 21 years old is going to come in and be a plus run defender in the NFL.
Like JFM type?
Yeah, even I'm not saying he's better than JFM, but yes, like his upside as a run stopper,
Yeah.
as a run stopper at the defensive end position is already going to be on the positive. He's going to be above average in it. The question is that can a team untap? Like there's so much untapped potential as a pass rusher that you just haven't seen a lot. So can a team get the most out of that? There's just not a lot in the pass rush toolbox, right? He struggles to disengage at times after his initial rush stops, so he doesn't have a good go-to counter move. Struggles to shed blocks at times when a tackle, when he's rushing and a tackle gets his hands on him and latches on, it's over, right? He doesn't move very well laterally, which is usually not a good sign. So he doesn't have that bend that you want. Some of these guys like Jermaine Johnson uses that Euro step where he'll like step in and then his next step isn't forward, but it's more so lateral where he can gather and then, fire off with the same ability. I don't think he has that. He plays a little bit kind of like a little bit recluse where he goes one way and that's it. He doesn't have like the ankle flexion or the balance to really regather and try something different. So, but if somebody can develop him, I mean, you talk about a guy that plays strong. He's got full body strength, upper body, lower body. A good really, really explosive kind of player. If somebody can help him develop as a pass rush guy, he could be a top 5 edge player in the entire league. He's got an upside, that's Myles Garrett-esque, but he is so far away from it. Like, he would need that perfect storm of everything to come together, and he can have that kind of upside, where he can play he's dominant against the run, and he can get at the passer. Right now, he's just not developed as a pass rusher yet. So, he's going to go early. I think he'll go in the first round. But again, a team's going to have to use him. He's probably going to be the heavy side of a rotation, an early down kind of defensive end. He's definitely going to move out of that 4-eye and move outside the tackle, maybe even some strong side, like some strong side defensive end, like what JFM played for the Jets. Not wide 9, but the strong side, where he can, get in there, set the edge, and really cause some disruption. He'll get a lot of tertiary sacks where a play breaks down and a quarterback kind of runs his way and he just happens to be there. I just don't know if he's going to beat a lot of guys right now, right from the jump, one-on-one. He's not the guy that I'm gonna line up. He only he had an 11.5% win rate as a pass rusher only 8% on pure pass rush on true pass sets. So he's not a guy that you're going to pin his ears back and get at the quarterback. He's a guy that you're going to say, hey, it's 1st and 10. You know, they're going to run the ball. We need you to get up there and be a wall. That's what Mike Williams is.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So I'm pretty certain he's not going to be a Jet because I don't think we're going to go first round edge. But you never know. We trade back. You trade up in the after the second round because a guy slipped longer than you thought. I mean, it's a crazy world. And, we never thought we were going to get Jermaine Johnson, Sauce Gardner, and Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, you're right about that.
I mean, so you just never really know 100%.
Yeah.
But good to know. Look, I think any team that gets him is going to be really lucky because to me, the sacks are always the big risk thing. Like you never, like that's like the when players bust, like at edge or people are disappointed, it's always the sack total.
Yeah.
But it's easier to predict. What's less likely to bust is the guy can stop the run.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
So,
and that's the thing. Like right now, he's a high floor player, right? Yeah. But he's got the possibility, the rare instance to be high floor, high ceiling, right? If he can develop which guys do. He's only 21 years old. Right now, you put him in the right spot. You put him in the right position. Not having him rush from the inside all the time. You put him in the right spot. Like championship game last year, 2023, they played him as an outside linebacker, standing on 2 feet. He had the game of his life.
Right.
And they said they were going to do a lot more than that this year in 24, and they didn't. They put him back down as a edge in a 3, defensive end in a 3-4.
Oh wow! So the potential is Scott.
The potential's there. Yeah, the potential's there. But again, you got to have you got to be willing. You got to be confident in the fact that you can get the most out of them. Put them in a position to win. And again, their games are completely different. But it's kind of just like that same mindset with Saleh. Like Mike Williams played the same position that Will McDonald played in college. And
right. Same issue.
The 4-eye in a 3-man front. He was the defensive end.
Oh.
And they said, no, we want you out wide 9. Let's use your skill set to your advantage. Yeah. Now, he doesn't have the skills. He doesn't have the speed and the flexibility and the bend that Will McDonald does. Will McDonald's a true pass rusher.
Will McDonald's ninja.
Yeah, he's a true pass rusher. Michael Williams is not a true pass rusher yet, but if you can untap that and make him into a pass rusher, watch out.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. So next guy, number 3. Maybe one of my favorite reviews and scouting reports that I put together. One of my favorite film studies of all players outside of Miles Frazier and Darius Alexander. And he's still my number 3. That's just where he graded out.
Not highly enough talked about, in my opinion. I think a lot of people do not talk about him enough.
Yeah, but there's reason for it, and I'll explain a little bit. And this is James Pierce Jr. from Tennessee. When you talk about production, right? There's nobody in college football that has had more consistent production year in and year out. 22 his freshman year, played in a reserve role. Got 2 starts out of 13 games, but played just not a lot. 2023 played all 13 games. First team All SEC. Led the SEC in sacks.
Wow.
Comes out in 2024. Again, struggles from the get-go. Definitely struggled early on. Finishes with 13 sacks. Finishes with a 32% pass rush win rate.
Jeez. That's
just
crazy.
Just gets at the quarterback, knows how to do it. Ran a low 4.4. Had over an 11-foot broad jump. He's and why he's not getting a lot of love is because I think of anybody in this class, I think he's probably the most typecasted. He's not going to be a Robert Saleh type of defensive end. He's not a guy that's going to line up on the end and put his hand in the ground and play base defense and be a fit. He's going to be an outside linebacker. He's going, I'm not comparing it to him, so take it easy, chat. But think of what Lawrence Taylor's role was for the Giants. Right? Think of TJ Watt's role for Pittsburgh. Like, that's the type of player James Pierce is. He can fit the run, but he does it better in space. He does it better coming downhill. He does it better using his speed and athleticism to shoot gaps and stuff like that. He's more a disruptor than he is a true wall or a run stopper. 52 pressures last year, 13 sacks.
Christ.
Yeah. Elijah Roberts was the only person in the nation with more pressures. Elijah Roberts had 71 pressures. Yeah. And James Pierce had 52. The guy just knows how to get. He's so fast. He's so good. He's everything. Do you remember 2 years ago, Nolan Smith coming out of Georgia?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And remember how fast he was, and everybody talked about it.
Yeah.
James Pierce is 3 times as nuanced a pass rusher now than Nolan Smith was coming out of Georgia. He's so good. He's so good. He's not going to be he's a 3-4 edge. He's not going to fit every defense. There's been some grumblings, and again, I'm not in the know. I'm not an insider. I only go by what I hear, what I read. But there's some grumblings about him being off of some people's boards because of character concerns.
Yeah, when I was in Cardiacs, the Jaguars dude, we both did a mock draft with him. When I did my mock draft with him, I had a team pick him, and he acted surprised. He said, "Oh, you don't think they'll care about the character issue?" And I'm like, "Nah, they're gonna take him."
So, there is that in the fact that he's 240 pounds. Character concerns really, really only fit in a 3-4 defense, and him having character concerns could push him down the board. Like, he could fall out of round 1. And man, I'm telling you, if he was somehow on the board of 42, like it or not, fit or not, like, this is the kind of athlete that you go get and you figure it out, right?
Because he just could be so special.
He is as good of a pass rusher as I've seen in quite a while. Like, just like a pure pass rusher, he's as good as one as I've reviewed and I've scouted in quite a while. And that includes Abdul Carter, who's my number 1 player in the class.
Yeah, I think and what people have to understand is, like, there's times and there's moments where you got to throw away and get position need out of your brain. Mm-hmm. Like, and I think Aaron Glenn has said it. If you listen to what Aaron Glenn is saying, you're listening to what Moogs is saying, they're saying that. Like, they've given that message of, you got to we have a chance to get a great player, you just get the player. Yeah. Don't worry about the position, just get the player. Yeah. Get great players. Championship teams have great players.
Yeah, at some point, like, I don't stand on 10 toes on the idea of best player available no matter what. You know what I mean? I don't subscribe to that, but I do subscribe to, there's a point in time in the draft where you're stupid if you don't take this guy if he's still here. And I think James Pierce falls into that category. He's too good. He is, like, the athleticism and the skill set that he brings as a pass rusher has been consistent now for 2 consecutive years in the best conference in college football. He is so good at that one skill set. There's going to be a point in time where, 7 might be way too high for him, but if he's there in round 2 at some point, you just have to take him and you have to figure it out. Like, when the value is so high at some point on some of these guys, that's when the BPA has to come in. I don't think it should be BPA all the time, but I think when the value is, like, super is so high on a guy, you just take good players and you figure it out. And I think that's what you did. That's what James Pierce is. Again, I don't know how real or how in tune those character concerns are with him. But I just know that he's a really damn good football player. He's my number 8 player in the entire class.
Wow. Do you know the only thing that would make it real? It's not going to happen, but can you imagine if this scenario happened? We'd want to kill ourselves because we wouldn't know what to do. Imagine James Pierce Jr. and Kenneth Grant are both on the board at 42.
Yeah.
Like, what are we gonna do? But you gotta take one of them. Yeah.
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 Yeah, I agree. That's actually fair.
Yeah, that would be so funny if those two guys were on the board, and Jaden Higgins. We would be killing each other. We'd be like, what do we do? We love these guys so much. But forget Higgins. You'd have to take either Grant or Pierce for sure.
Yeah. But Pierce is really special. He's special. He might not be an every down player early on in his career, and that's fine. But he's going to make a team really happy because he just knows how to get at the quarterback, and he's done it year in and year out at the highest level, in the best conference in football. So you just figure it out. I mean, one out of every 3 times he was put into a pass rush situation, a one-on-one situation, he wins. That's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous.
He's a guy, because you know how I always say that you take like in every class, if you take your number 1 guy at the position, like if you take your edge 1 and you put him against the entire class, usually you'd bet on the entire class that someone's going to end up being the best player. Like it very rarely is the OT1 the best player. Like
Correct.
Joe was an exception, right? But a lot of times the running back 1 isn't the best running back. The WR1 isn't the best wide receiver, coming out of the draft. If you put them against the whole rest of the field. Okay. So I get the vibe with this kid that if anybody was going to end up being better than being the edge 1, like surprising. He obviously has a much lower floor. But if anybody was going to shock the world and end up being the best edge in the draft, it could very well be this.
It wouldn't surprise me at all. You're right. You're absolutely right about that.
But so is our number 2, I think. I believe number 2 could end up being, well, maybe not. Okay, I could see number 2 being the guy that has more sacks, and it'd be debatable whether he's the better player than our number 1 edge.
Yeah, so number 2, I think, is a little bit more well-rounded. Mm-hmm. Number 2, I think, is not so much very scheme-specific. I think he can play. I think he's a little bit more versatile. And that's Mike Green at a Marshall.
Love this kid.
Oh, man, there's not a lot to dislike about Mike Green, right? Yes, he played at Marshall. Yes, he transferred out of Virginia because of an alleged an accuser made some allegations against him that were never founded, that he was never prosecuted for. But similar, and again, I don't want to kind of paint this kid in a light that is that's untrue. I'm not saying that he's completely innocent, this, that, and the other thing. I will say that I think a lot of people he was guilty before he was proven innocent, right? Guilty in the court of the people as opposed to the court of law. So he had some sexual misconduct allegations. He ended up leaving Virginia over it. Nothing ever came about of it. He was not kicked out of school. He chose to move on. To the kid's credit, he addressed all this stuff on the podium at the combine in front of every beat writer and every NFL team. He came out and said it and said there was nothing that ever happened. Here's what was accused. Here's what was proven. I thought it was in my best interest to separate myself from all that nonsense and moved on. So you talk about a guy who has twitch. You talk about a guy who has bend. You talk about a guy who has incredible change of direction. You talk about a guy that can convert speed to power. We watched it with our own eyes 10 feet from us at the Senior Bowl when he ran through the chest
of Josh Conerly,
who's my OT1 in the class. You talk about closing speed. You're talking about a guy that can finish. This is Mike Green, man. You know, he's yes, he's a little bit slender, 255 pounds is not your prototypical edge size. Yes, he's almost at times too aggressive, where he can overshoot and miss a lot of tackles. He gets beat on those draws and those counters and stuff that go right across his face because he's overly aggressive. So it's not perfect, but I think he's right up there with the best pass rushers in this class, and I think he can. I think he's skilled enough to play the run. I think he's a 3-down player who's going to he's going to cause havoc from the defensive end position.
Dom, and this is one of the very few players that I'm going to say this about, because I'm like everybody else. Offensive tackle, we need that. Tight end, we need that. And all this stuff. I know that Jet fans will kill me for saying this. I wouldn't even put it on Twitter because I'd be attacked and assaulted. I'm not saying I want it to happen and it's what I would do, but I am telling you, as angry as 80% of our fan base might be, if the Jets took Mike Green at 7, I would not be mad.
Yeah, no, me neither.
That good.
Me neither, Jeremy. Me neither. I mean that wholeheartedly. I agree with everything that you just said.
Yeah,
I agree with everything you just said.
He's that good. He's just that good. I think we saw him. Everybody who saw him that was there at the Senior Bowl feels that way. You know what I mean? It's like there's certain things people who weren't there could, you hear about him. Oh, he's Marshall. We saw him against Connor. We saw him against the guy, and I agree with you. I don't know. I didn't do a list. I don't know if he'd be my OT1. He might be my OT2, but who cares? Yeah. He's talking about an offensive tackle we both agree is the first or second best offensive tackle in the class. We both agree he's an amazing tackle that's going to be very good in the NFL. And we watched Mike Green go right through him.
Yep.
Like he wasn't even there.
And then the film complements that. Now, granted, that's one rep in a controlled situation, which is the defense always has the advantage on it. But then you take that one rep and then you watch his film, and not just one game, but 6 games, 7 games, and it's consistent, right? He can win in a multitude of ways from the edge. He's strong enough, although he's not Mykel Williams or Elijah Roberts versus the run. I think he's NFL adequate versus the run. I think he'll do a good job there. The only, you take the character stuff and all those allegations out of the equation. And the biggest problem that he has is that he might be a tad undersized, in terms of length, short arms and weight. So that's a negative. And then the fact that sometimes he's too aggressive, right? He overshoots his mark. And listen, I would take that over the opposite. I'd rather try to, pull the reins in on a guy than try to have him, hey, come on, go get him, keep moving or whatnot, So if he can figure out, and he figured out in college, if he can figure out how to use his lack of size and length and still not be kind of impeded by it, you're looking at a guy that's got an all-pro ceiling.
Yeah, I honestly believe that, and this is what would make every Jet fan shut up and feel dumb about complaining about it and being mad. I honestly believe that there's the potential that he could be a guy that has a 3-4 year season run consecutively where he gets between 15 and 20 sacks. That's how good I think this is.
He's my number 5 player in the class. And I think it's well deserved. Like I said, I have 3 edges in the top 10. I got 3 edges in the top 10, and then my next edge is Mykel Williams. He's at 28. So to me, there's a clear tier. I think 1 is on a tier by himself, and then 2 and 3 are on a second tier, and then there's a big gap between 4 through the rest.
And we're going to talk about it, but 1 is probably, I think, correct me if I'm wrong. Probably you're going to say he's a tier in himself by himself. Kind of like Tyler Warren in the sense that he has such a high floor.
and I think he's got
and a high ceiling. But I'm
yeah,
saying,
yeah,
and a
exactly.
crazy high ceiling. But that what makes him so much better than everyone else. Like it's the same thing with what I say with Tyler Warren. It's just that the floor is also so high. Like
Correct.
you're not going to miss. You're getting a great player, even if he's a bust to what his ceiling would have been.
Yeah, and obviously we're talking about Abdul Carter, right? Now, people will go back and forth. For me, and this is just me, Abdul Carter is my number one graded, my favorite play, my number one rated player in the class. Excuse me, not my favorite, my number one rated.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about ridiculous athleticism. I don't think there's a more athletic person in the entire class. I don't care what position he plays. I don't care that you find the most athletic wide receivers and cornerbacks and so on and so forth, and none of them are going to even meet or touch what Abdul Carter is. His first step in his closing speed is something that you just don't see. It's Micah Parsons-esque, and I know lazy take. They're both from Penn State. But that's exactly I see so much Micah Parsons in his game. He
even went from linebacker to edge.
Correct.
He even had the same pattern, in his career trajectory or whatever.
Yeah. So 6'4" or 6'4", 6'3", almost 6'3" and 3/4, 255 pounds, runs a 4.44, right? He and he was on the freaks list. I think he was, in the top 10 of the freaks list. With a 4.35 shuttle, 127-inch power clean. Broad jump, and he power cleaned almost 400 pounds. The guy is just a ridiculous athlete, man. The closing speed is something that you like. I talked about it with Mike Green, how it's really good. It's at a completely different level, Abdul Carter. His first step will beat a tackle, and then he cuts the corner, and he gets there so fast. The quarterback sometimes doesn't even have the chance, right? And he plays physical as well. He's a really, really physical tackler. Like I said, being an off-ball linebacker, converted off-ball linebacker, he can drop back in his zone if he wanted to and cover. I think this guy is going to play that Micah Parsons Joker role, where you don't know where he's going to line up all over the formation. He can do whatever. He can come up and fit the run and in a phone booth and take on offensive linemen and make tackles and stuff like that against the run. You can drop him off into his zone if you want, or he can just creep around, right? He can blitz from the outside. He can blitz from the inside. You can use him as the looper. You can use him as a stunter. There's just, Abdul Carter is just a defensive weapon.
The thing I love when I watch his film is just the amount of times I saw him slide laterally across that line.
Yeah.
To catch a running back on the opposite sideline.
Yep.
To where he started. Ridiculous. Well, you don't see that. It's not normal.
Yeah. Yeah. So, obviously, I don't think that he's even, we don't even have to. We can't consider him as for the Jets at 7. I just don't think that there's any way. As a matter of fact, I could see him being the guy that teams want to trade up for. Just say, he's on the board at 3
because the
or
top
4
quarterback. Yeah.
If he's on the board at 3 or 4. I could see the Giants and the Patriots entertaining and getting a king's ransom to move down a little bit. Carolina would be a perfect spot for him. They need an edge rusher, right? The Saints would be a perfect spot. They need an edge rusher. Jacksonville, I'm sure, would love him opposite Josh Allen, Josh Haynes Allen. You put him on the field with Trayvon Walker and Josh Haynes Allen. Forget it. Who are you stopping?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I just think he's at a complete different level. I think you said it right. You can't ever bank that. We've seen number one picks that were can't miss that missed. But man, this guy's as close to a can't miss prospect as there is. Right?
There are some guys where it's just Joe Alt was that guy last year.
Yes.
Joe Alt was the no-brainer, and he did exactly what we knew he was going to do. He came in and right away he was one of the better tackles in the league. Just instantly. He was just he just you just knew, you just watched, and the guy barely ever had a bad rep.
Yeah.
But there's just some guys, and you watch the impact. You watch the teams that Penn State plays, the big games, the big offenses, these playing against future NFL competition, and you watch the impact of Abdul Carter. It's like, and you just know, you see it. This guy's going to be special.
Listen, if there's anything you want to that would raise questions for you, one, he hasn't been an edge rusher for that long, right? So he's got very limited reps on it. So there's still a little bit of probably growth and education and truly how to play the position. And two, I think because he's so new at it, the recognition, sometimes the play wreck, like he can get fooled a lot on counters. He can get fooled on those end arounds, stuff like that. He can get sucked in, and then they hit him on the outside, stuff like that. And I don't know if he's, I don't know if he's strong enough yet to really put his hand in the dirt and play true, like 4-3 edge all the time. But I also don't see any reason why a team would want to do that. Right. You want to move him around. You want to put him and line him up against a mismatch because he's going to win those mismatches. He's going to take advantage of those mismatches all day long.
I want to like let him loose, like Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons. I mean, like he's just JJ, like one of those guys that just the guy from the Raiders. I mean, like just be a guy that just dominates and takes over. You just want to just terrorize the other team.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to comp somebody to Micah Parsons because Micah Parsons is so good. But as a pass rusher, I think I think he can be Micah Parsons. I think he can be Max Crosby, even though Max Crosby wins a lot more with power than Abdul Carter does.
Yeah.
He could have that kind of effect on the defense. I'll say that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very. Who is a good comp? Who he's a good comp to? It just came to me now. Von Miller. He's Von Miller.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
that's a great comp.
Yeah,
I mean that's a great comp because when you think of Von Miller, you think of him as a guy anywhere.
Anywhere you line him up, you got to pay attention. You better get two hats on him.
Yeah. I mean, it's just incredible. It's like I'm so envious of the team that picks him. I mean, you're just getting a star.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what happens because I still think, I know other people don't, this is my opinion, I still think the two quarterbacks will go first. And I'm wondering if the Giants would consider him at 3. Like they already have their edge. They're already paying a lot of money to their edges, right? They have Tibbs and they got Brian Burns. Could that be a spot where New England trades up one spot and says, hey, yeah, we'll give you a third. Take it. We just want to move up. We want to get our guy. We want to lock in our guy to make sure that nobody else, the Giants don't trade down with anybody else to jump them for Abdul Carter.
Yeah, that's so interesting because you're right. Because sometimes there is a limit to, we have so much resource going into this position, like so much money.
Correct.
And now you're going to take a kid that it's like, how do we even get everyone on the field? Like at some point it becomes, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, I think if the Giants have their choice of any position player, it would be Hunter for sure.
Yeah.
He can help you a lot of different ways, offense too. But trading down would be the smarter move for them as an organization, in my opinion. Like if you can get a crazy boatload of picks, if somebody's willing to trade up from the teens to 3, can you imagine the bag of picks you'd get from that?
Yeah.
Like
I don't even think they'd have to move that far. Like they could probably go down to 8 because I could see Carolina really moving up and giving up a king's ransom to move from 3 to 8. But
wow.
I do want to mention one thing. One guy that we did not talk about, who I'm sure, in the comments when people watch this after the fact, they're going to talk about is Jalen Walker. I have Jalen Walker graded out with the linebackers. Questionable if he's going to be a linebacker or an edge rusher in the next class in the NFL. I think he's kind of a hybrid guy, but I have him with the linebackers. When we get to the linebackers, we'll talk about Jalen Walker. I just didn't put him in with the edge rushers. And I could have. Some people are going to see him as an edge. I mean, one of my good friends, a guy I respect wholeheartedly, Will Parkinson, loves Jalen Walker and thinks that he is an edge rusher and he won't play a lot of off-ball linebacker. I just think the opposite. I think he's going to probably be more of a blitzing linebacker, take more reps off ball than he will as a pure edge rusher. So,
just to open it up, we managed to handle them when they came in. But if there's any more questions before we go, as we're wrapping up, because we went through the top 8 and our honorable mention. But if you have any questions you want to ask Dom C, or any if you want to ask me about my head and how I maintain it, this would be the time to ask.
So do you? I got an honest question.
Yeah.
Do you have one of those shavers that you put on your hand and you get the top of your head like this?
No, my wife, as a gift, bought me a very expensive, fancy clippers that they use in a barbershop.
Okay.
So when I sometimes I get lazy and I don't shave for a long time. So when it gets too long, it's like it doesn't get stuck, it doesn't cut, it doesn't nick. It's just like when you go to the barber, it's just and it just comes right off. And it's really tight. So if I don't want to use shaving cream and a razor and I don't have a lot of time, I could just stick my head out, go into the shower and just kind of use this thing. Mm-hmm. And it's pretty damn tight, but then when I shave and put shaving cream on, it's so much easier and less irritating because of it. So usually what happens is about once a week, I will lightly go over my head with that razor thing. If it's too long, because I don't like, shave and, but then I'll just do the shaving cream and
gotcha.
So I can get the shine, because I want that shine.
Yes.
My head, you know what I mean?
I got you, man.
Let's see. We do have a question now from our friend.
Odds that draft goes this way: Ward, Carter, Sanders. I can see that. Membu, okay.
Yeah.
Graham, okay. 6, Genty.
Okay.
Listen, I guess there's a spot in some world that goes here, but I'd probably say, if I had to guess,
New England.
If it started Ward, Carter, Sanders, that somebody's trading up into New England spot for Hunter.
Yeah, and if not, even New England might say, you know what?
and I think Jacksonville will take Hunter over Graham if given the option.
Yeah.
And I think the Raiders will take Hunter over Genty if given the option. So
right.
the likelihood of this happening, danger zone, is as likely, probably could happen, probably as likely as Jeremy growing, some hair back on that dome.
I mean, okay, so I think I'll say this, even though both are not going to happen. I'd say if I had to pick one, someone holds a gun to my head and said, one of these two players is going to slip to 7, Abdul Carter or Hunter, I would say it's Hunter.
I'd probably say Carter.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Just because, I mean, and I have Carter rated higher than Hunter. Mm-hmm. But I just think, you teams are going to see teams that need both a defensive back that need a wide receiver are going to be in on Hunter. I think there's going to be more people that want to get that, can take bites of those apples outside of just Carter. So,
Grandizer, I'm not remembering the name of the brand. I will the next time I go on live and the next time I see you, or I'll send you a message on Facebook. Okay? Message me on Facebook and I'll look at the razor and I'll tell you the brand. It came in a nice fancy case, the whole thing. It's expensive, but it's 3 or 4 years old and it's like it's brand new. Like you're paying for something, good. That's not it's not a 1-year thing and then it breaks. This is something you'll own for the rest of your life.
Yeah. So Grando's got a question in there, a couple up.
Oh, let's see.
It says, question, do you see a last-minute pass rusher whose stock will rise right before the draft? So I kind of touched on this earlier. Right now, that the guy who's skyrocketed up the board is Donovan Ezeraku. I think he's clearly played himself into round 1. Arguably, could go as high as edge 2. Right around there. Wow. The other name that I think between now and the draft that people are going to be talking about is Braden Swinson. and he's an edge rusher out of LSU. He's a Shrine Bowl guy. He is another just dominant pass rusher. The problem with Swinson is that he does not play the run very well at all. So he's going to be a designated pass rusher, but he went from pretty much no one's talking about him to now in the early day two range. Like he'll be a top 60 player. If there's enough buzz, if there's one of these teams at the end of round one that really is just looking for a pass rush specialist, like they could just tag Braden Swinson. So I think that's the name.
Just Dom, I don't know I'm forgetting his name. I think I texted it to you once. I just want everybody to know Texas A&M is as good as their edges are, that they have two edges coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Also have they have a junior. I think he's a junior. I don't think he's a sophomore. I think he's a junior. I think he played against LSU. Like maybe somebody was hurt or out, but they have an edge. He's a junior. He's probably so. I think next year he's going to be a top 10 pick. But I'll look him up and try to figure out his name. They're very stacked, that room in that school.
Yeah, well they pay a lot of NIL money, so they get all the goods.
Yeah, they got a very special young edge coming up that everybody watch out for A&M next year with this kid. I think I might be misremembering. I think it was when I was watching Will Clark. Did we have that game? Is that on Cuts? The Will Campbell.
Yeah.
It's the Ole Miss and the A&M game, right?
Yeah.
It's A&M. Their junior edge owned Will Campbell. Was like owned him. Could not stop him.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Me and Buffalo on the other night, Friday night, Buffalo had me on the show, and we did a full 42. We did a mock draft up to 42. So we did 1 to 42. And the way the board fell, I actually took Will Campbell for the Jets at 7. I know you would hate it. But Member went 4, and Tyler Warren went 5, and I almost took Mike Green at 7. But I said, you know what? I said, listen, I don't think he's a tackle. I said, I think he's a guard. However, maybe, and this is what I don't know, because I tried to look this up. Muji has no history since he was, kind of in one of the shot callers in Denver. They never drafted any freaking offensive tackle. So I don't know if Will Campbell or a guy with, that short wingspan or something like that is his type. I think there's going to be some guys that say, yeah, he can hang a tackle. So I bet on the fact that Muji said, we'll let him compete at tackle. And at worst, next year, we have 2 holes at guard, so we can just slide him over.
I know that we have that the insurance policy is that he could be a guard.
Yes.
But I would be depressed.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to waste number 7. I wouldn't want to spend. I shouldn't say waste, because I think he's a good player. I just think he's a good guard, and I don't know if I want to spend that capital on an interior offensive line.
Especially when you could call up Dom C any year and he'll give you a name like Miles Frazier. You just don't need to use number 7 on a guard, man. Every year you have a guard that could get for the taking in the 3rd or 4th round. Every year.
Yep.
Every year there'll probably be some guy with the last name Frazier next year also. So but it would be depressing. But I understand it as much as I agree with you and think that he's not going to be a successful tackle. There's a chance that he might.
Yeah. Well, listen, I want to rephrase what you said.
He might be an average right tackle, which is not horrible. But the fact that he'll be an elite all-pro guard is a nice consolation.
I don't think his ceiling is average tackle. Listen, he might be just a fine tackle. A lot of what they're saying about Rashawn Slater when he was coming out, what they're saying about Will Campbell, they said about Rashawn Slater, right?
Right.
He's gonna have to move inside. He was given an opportunity to play tackle and hasn't left.
Right.
So it can work.
Right.
My Will Campbell stuff is not just based on his arm length, though. It's just based on his skill set. I think he's much better in a phone booth. I think his power profile plays much better inside in a phone booth where he's not talking, where he doesn't have to worry about his short little choppy piston-like steps, oversetting on the outside, getting beat to the inside, this, that, and the other thing.
Yeah. Graham does. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not familiar either.
Yeah, I didn't think it was. I have to check and make sure I even have the right team. So I'll try to figure it all out. But there was definitely somebody who was, I think he was number 4. He was number 4 for A&M, I think. And it was just some guy, and he wasn't one of the 2 main guys. So I was kind of surprised. Yeah, I would be depressed though if we took Will Campbell. And way before they came in with his measurements, Dom. It's the Ole Miss game. I can't get the LSU Ole Miss game out of my head.
Yeah,
he's so bad in that first half.
Yeah,
I mean,
I hate to be the bearer of bad news, Jeremy.
Yeah,
there's 3 guys that are first round, number 7 overall worthy, that they've done extensive work on. Not just done their homework, but extensive work on. Tyler Warren, Armand Membu, Will Campbell.
Oh, God, I hope New England takes Will Campbell. Please. They love to take guys that they think we want. Please think we want Will Campbell and take him. Please. Please.
I think there's a better chance that they take Will Campbell than they do Membu.
I do.
So. Because I think that, they need a left tackle. And I'm not saying Membu can't play left tackle, but Membu hasn't played left tackle.
Right.
So there's that.
Take the proven left
tackle. If they're both similar in terms of grade, you take the guy that's played the position, right?
Yeah.
And listen, I'm not saying Membu can't. Last year I said there was no freaking way Talise Fuaga can play left tackle. And guess what? He proved me wrong. And all those haters that said J.C. Latham couldn't play tackle, he was going to move the guard. Guess what? You were all wrong.
They won't still admit it. There's one guy we know that. There's one guy we know who finds graphics and stats for things, and it's so frustrating because all you want to say to this dude is, "Did you watch him play? Are you reading the local press of what they're saying about him in his hometown, like the fans are saying and the experts are saying? Like, J.C. Latham is not a failure, he's a success. And now he's getting to move back to his natural position because they signed a left tackle.
They did.
Now he gets to move back to his natural position. And our friend put it in our face like that proves that he was right. And I'm like, no, that's a good thing for J.C. Latham. That means they're putting him back in his natural position. But the fact that he was able to fill in for a full year at left tackle only strengthens our argument that J.C. Latham is a successful pick.
Yeah, he's a good point. So, and to that J.C. Latham point, man, I will die on the hill to say Miles Frazier's tape is as close to Joe Walt's tape was maybe the best that I've ever watched on an offensive lineman. Probably the single, you had to try to find something wrong in Joe Walt's tape.
You ruined me. You spoiled me.
There was that. So
I hate everybody.
Yeah. And after that, Tyler Smith, when he was coming out of Tulsa, I thought his tape was really good, but not as good as J.C. Latham's. J.C. Latham's tape was dominant. And I'm not talking about a game. I'm talking about his every game that I watched. Were there misses or were there bad reps? Sure. Everyone's going to have them, except Joe Alt. But the dominance that J.C. Latham had on tape all throughout that last year and even into the year before was just something I've never saw until this year when I watched Miles Frazier. The closest thing to J.C. Latham that I've ever seen.
Dude.
And they're still as good as high as I am on both of those guys and as good as I thought their tape was, they were probably still 3 tiers lower than Joe Alt.
Well, because Joe Alt is just ridiculous. He didn't only not have bad reps, he dominated almost every one.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous, dude. You ruined me because that was the first film I ever really, really watched a lot of a player. And now after that, I'm just like, it's so hard for me to re-gauge what's normal because I thought, you know what I mean? Like, because now people don't know behind the scenes, Dom is always yelling at me, Jeremy, you can't, they lose reps. Players lose reps. Like, I'm always bitching about every freaking offensive lineman because they're losing reps. But then the second guy since Joe Alt, there's only one other guy that we watched film together that you pointed out that also it was hard to find anything wrong, and that's Miles Frazier.
Frazier.
Yep.
That's why I'm telling you, I'll die on this hill, and maybe I'll be wrong. I've been wrong before. I was wrong about Fuanga. I didn't think Talisa Fuanga was going to be able to not only stay a tackle, but play left tackle. Forget it. And I was completely wrong. I'll admit it. Not to say that I was like low on him, but I wasn't nearly as high as everyone else. So I'm not perfect, but I'm pretty confident that Miles Frazier is going to be a damn good NFL player. And nobody talks about him in the same level that they talk about some of these other guys, man. Drives me. It boggles me.
Do you have a draft crush pass rusher? I think what Grandizer is asking, forget about your top 10, 12. A guy that you just see a sleeper out there that's in the 5th, 6th round at 170 that nobody's thinking of.
I don't know about 5th, 6th round. I think he might go a little earlier, maybe like 4th, late 4th, early 5th.
Okay, 120.
But David Walker's interesting because he's a small school kid, Central Arkansas. He's undersized. He's only 6'1" and change. He's about 260 pounds. He's probably only going to be a designated pass rusher. But behind James Pierce and Mike Green, he had the best win rate percentage of all edge rushers in getting at the quarterback. He's a small school kid who can play with the big boys. For sure.
Yeah. Cool.
Not gonna be super solid against the run. But if you need a guy, if you're looking for this year's Bryce Huff, that's the guy I would say.
Yeah, and a defensive tackle, we have a guy named Peebles that we.
That's right.
We both like a lot.
That's right. It is Peebles, man. He is awesome. Oh.
All right.
Listen, I gotta cut out. I was gonna say.
Okay, so I'm gonna sneeze now, but
God bless.
Thank you. Guys, I want to thank everybody for their support. Thanks for being here. If you just joined really late and you want to see the top 8 edges, go and watch the replay. It'll post soon. It'll be up. So enjoy it. And let me, before I end, let me see. Try to do this right this time. Last time I messed up. Tom C., thank you so much. Your expertise is very, very appreciated.
And next week, what position you want to do, Jeremy?
Let's see. Linebackers or safeties?
Let's do safeties. Okay.
I think everybody's dying for safeties. So.
Yeah. Okay. That works.
All right, everybody. Take care, and I leave you with this.
And this, I promise you, is no lie. His legend will live on, just like the catcher in the rye. His word will be shared in every classroom. Kids will be wearing a Jeremy costume. He has been a Jets fan for over 40 years. So far they have left him drowning in tears. All brakes and no gas. That went as well as looking at green beans ass. Pizza is the weakness from this chaotic storm. That of Frankie, who used to bring the calm, not on Thursdays. With O'Leary, he will tell that dude named Hennessy to go to hell. Reacting to the games on green beans, Jets fan. Nick Shine and Dano screaming Jeremy is the man. From Jake Asman to Gunny to Jets Talk 24/7. A New York Jets championship will be pure heaven. Deli, cheesesteak, and Southern barbecue. Jeremy and his brothers on Brooklyn Brothers Food Review. You can never get too much of his bald head. You won't forget his name until you're long dead. Jets chaos will never die. It will never die. It won't ever die. It just won't die. Jets cast will never die. It will never die. won't die.